Good. All right, I will call the September 11th, 2023 Kickapoo School Board meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call. Marla?
Paul Schrader.
Here.
Janet Mathis. Here. Earl Wallace.
Here.
Rich James.
Here.
Isaac Wallace.
Here.
Scott Walter.
Here. Item 2, affirmation of proof of publication of the agenda.
I, Kimberly Johnson, hereby certify that notice of the Kickapoo School Regular Committee School Board meeting was caused to be published in the Epitaph News on 9/7/23 and posted on billboards in the following places on 9/8/23, the Kickapoo School Building, Citizens First Bank, Viola Post Office, and our school website.
Thank you, Kim. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Can we make a little change though?
You absolutely can.
Since Anna is here, we have her way down in informational on the pool review, can we like move her up to audience to visitors?
You don't wanna hang out for
She would be welcome to stay,
but she has babies.
No, can't do themselves yet.
Okay, we'll move item F under the informational agenda then, up to item 4, audience to visitors and board members, right, Janet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make that motion with the change.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Earl, second by Janet, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We move on then, motion passes, we move on then to audience to visitors and board members, and we have 2 visitors tonight then. We'll start with Larry, who would like to speak on remembrances of 9/11.
Okay. So many things going through my mind now when I look at these 2 gentlemen. Do you remember if I started the first class you had with me off with a poem? Do you remember? Okay. You know, I was going through that, hold that book up for me, young man, will you please? Okay. Yeah, Civil War poetry, I was reading some poetry out of there, and I look to poetry and philosophy and spiritual writings, you know, to try to make sense out of the world that we're living in right now. And some of the poems in there were written to appease the Southerners. Some of the poems in there were written to appease the Northerners. Some of the poems in there were written to find that common ground where our shared humanity is. Okay? And those are the poems I focus on. You know. So I have selected poems in my teaching career, and especially in UWL and Turbo when I left here. I taught there for 5 years. School of Education, I taught undergraduate and graduate, and I used poetry a lot to educate, if you will. Also, I've started every class with a poem. And in these teacher education classes, when I was pushing the idea of continuous education for teachers, you know. So I had to show my continuous education, so there's a copy of, you know, my old, what do you call it, teaching lessons, yeah. Here, yeah. I'm gonna pass that around, okay. So I'm reading this poetry, I'm thinking of 9/11, I'm thinking of years, and maybe some of you don't know, I spent 4 years in the Marines. I'm thinking about all this stuff, you know. But I'm thinking mostly about courage. The courage to lead and the courage to teach. And it takes courage, probably at any time, to do these things, but I believe particularly in the times that we're living now, it takes a lot of courage. And so, in 1993, William Jefferson Clinton commissioned Maya Angelou to write a poem. and he gave her sort of these marching orders. He wanted a poem that talked about new beginnings. He wanted a poem that talked about courage to participate, you know, to foment new beginnings, if you will. He talked about a poem that would center on new beginnings for the country. And she did this, in my opinion, and she did it very well. And so here I am, an employee of the Kickapoo School District. It's 1993. I'm thinking 9/11 too, but I'm bringing this all into courage, okay? I turned the TV on. It was about 5 minutes after 11 our time. I think I had a 5th or 6th grade class in the old elementary at that time. And Maya Angelou was introduced. Well, she read the poem, On the Pulse of Morning. And I just had an explosion of epiphanies. And it changed me. And it changed me. I had the same kind of feeling that I had when I heard Martin Luther King speak in Chicago. I got pretty as close as I could get, you know, to the man. I just had one epiphany after another. And so I decided that since you folks are in the driver's seat, because it takes courage to lead, and teachers are in the driver's seat from the point of view of the students, I suppose, because it takes courage to teach, I'd like to share with you what she wrote about courage as it relates to our country. This paper was cut from the La Crosse Tribune. You know, back in the day, they used to publish every day, so I just put these, you know, the 2 strips from the newspaper down here. And you'll see William Jefferson Clinton. I was able to get him to sign this in, what was that, 2008. He was at UW La Crosse and politicking for his life, I believe. It was easier to get his signature than to try to get an appointment with Maya Angelou. That was a challenge. So here we go. So I'm going to give you one more little tidbit. Okay, so she took 3 symbols, a rock, a river, and a tree. And then through the magic of language, she changed those symbols into metaphors for our country. A rock, a river, a tree. Host of species long since departed, mark the mastodon, the dinosaur who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully, come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made, proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your arm struggles for profit have left colors of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sang and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock.
So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. They hear the first and last of every tree speaks to humankind today. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed on traveler, has been paid for. You, who gave me my first name. You, Pawnee, Apache, Seneca. You, Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You, the Turk, the Arab, the Swede, the German, the Eskimo, the Scot. You, the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Kru, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourself beside me. I am that tree planted by the river, which will not be moved. I, the rock. I, the river. I, the tree. I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, and if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place a new step of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country, no less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the Macedon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning. Yeah. This shakes me. And I'm gonna wish you all luck and good health in the things you have to do, as well as the things you should be doing, okay? And I might drop in on some meetings and drop an idea or two on that. I've been pretty quiet for a long time, for those of you who know me, that's difficult for me. But I don't feel I should be quiet anymore, and about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I received a phone call from a boyhood friend who lives in Pennsylvania, and he told me that our boyhood friend, and we've been getting together for decades, in Arizona, was found dead yesterday morning. And I'm going to be 82 in a couple of months, you know, and I had said to myself when I stopped teaching, I'd like to be involved with teacher education, but I'm just going to stay away for at least 12 years. Well, 12 years have gone by. And I don't know how many days are ahead of me, none of us know that, okay? But I'm not going to be quiet any longer. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry.
And you may keep them home. Did everybody get a copy? You want a copy? Okay. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Larry.
you very much, Larry.
That's the poem I was telling you about that I wanted to
I
do.
did, I looked it up.
Okay.
Thank you. That was very professional.
Very nice. And our second visitor, Anna Marty, gives us a review of Kickapoo Pool's first year.
Yeah, this is an exciting thing. You guys worked really, really, really hard and had a lot of long meetings to get this pool going, and I just wanted to come and give you a review on how the first year went. Since there's a couple of new people, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Anna Marty. I originally grew up in a small rural town called Abbotsford, Wisconsin, like 2.5 hours north. And I was really lucky, even though I lived in a rural school district, to have a pool. And I had free swim lessons all throughout elementary school because of that pool. And if it wasn't for the pool, I wouldn't know how to swim. I became a lifeguard when I was 15. I became a swim lesson teacher when I was 16. And I've been teaching swim lessons ever since I was 16 and have worked for 7 different pools. So I was excited at that opportunity when I heard Kickapoo wanted to hire a pool supervisor. I jumped at that because I care a lot about kids learning how to swim and pools that serve communities. So stuck to last summer, summer of 2022, we certified 8 high school Kickapoo lifeguards. And this summer we certified 4. So 2 of our lifeguards from last year graduated, so now we have 10 high school lifeguards, which I feel like is a really good number for us. Last year I created this big edit-friendly pool calendar to share with staff. I don't want me to be the sole person who controls the pool and is in charge of the pool. I want to share that with the entire school. So anybody with a Kickapoo email address can access this and can post things like PE classes. Mrs. Martin would reserve the pool for her robotics class, and they would build, robots that would swim in the pool. Classes would use this for different rewards parties. There's birthday parties. There's sports practices. I know cross country, basketball, volleyball, wrestling, track and field all use the pool for their practices once in a while. So just to kind of show that quick, it was just a big calendar with different tabs at the bottom. Their PE did a swim unit for 3 weeks in the winter and 3 weeks in the spring. And this is also how I scheduled all the lifeguards for open swim. And then the new one we have this year, which has already been shared out for the whole school year, is all color coded. We did much cleaner and organized than last year's. We learned a lot in the first year. I also have a list of all the lifeguards down the side with their study hall times. So if a teacher wants to do a rewards party, or use the pool as an incentive, they can just check the list of study halls for the lifeguards, and they can reach out to a lifeguard and ask them to open the pool for them for that. So yeah, green is open swim, orange is our pool rentals, and purple is our community classes. I'm just gonna quick breeze through these. These are the pool schedules for the year. So we were supposed to we did open October 1st. We had a little grand opening, and we had a couple open swims. And then there was an issue with I believe it was called the ductron unit or the humidifier, so we had to close, and then we reopened on the 26th. November, our goal when we first opened was to open it as many days as possible, just to see how many people would come swim and when, so we could get a better idea of what kind of pool schedule to make. I did send out a survey in the fall to kind of figure out what the community wanted as far as swim times, and then I built this schedule based on that survey. But then again, our goal was just to open the pool as much as possible and then track to see how many people use it. And then I would also advertise on these calendars, you can rent the pool, and I'd share the information on how to rent the pool. Let's see, so yeah, as we went on, the pool calendar shrank a little bit as we got to know, okay, more people come at this time and less people come at this time. In January, we started doing pool classes, so we had swim lessons on Wednesday nights and water aerobic classes as well 2 times a week. We tried different formats of the schedule. The schedule was shared with every elementary student, 4K through 5th grade. I'd send home a paper copy with them. We'd post it on the school website. We'd post it on Facebook. We post it on the app. So we tried to share the schedule a lot. We'd also hang it on the pool door. Just breeze through those. And after each shift, lifeguards would fill out a Google form that would send all the data to this spreadsheet. And with this data, I can easily create pivot tables to show the data in different ways. So that was a big complaint of the old pools. We didn't know who was using it or when. Well, now we have very hard data, a lot of data of who's using it and when. So it comes into this big jumbled giant spreadsheet, but with pivot tables, you can just easily organize it into different things like this. So I'll just show you a bigger version of some of the bigger data points. So this is the total number of swimmers during open swim and lap swim. So October was our first month. We had 76 people use the pool that month. And remember, October there was not that many open swim days because of the shutdown. And then I also have the total number out of district people that came. So anyone who's out of district pays $5. So we made $20 that month. November, 129 people. You can kind of just look through to see. December was really low because we had 5 pool rentals that month, and the people who wanted to rent the pool was always during open swim time, so that's why we had less people come to open swim, because we had more pool rentals. January, 84, February, 125, March, 83, April, 37, May, 42. Summer picked up with June, 92, July was a little slow at 55, August picked up again at 86. And we made a grand total of $295 in out-of-district swimmers, and a total of 878 people came to the pool this past year, so far. So this is the data I use to help me decide what days of the week to open up the pool. So this is the average number of swimmers per weekday per month. So as you can see, the trend is most people use our pool on the weekends. And it was pretty hit or miss on weekdays. You know, there was a lot of nights lifeguards would say we had 0 people at the pool, nobody came. And so you can see with like average of 1 on Friday here. But usually the average was less than 10 for all weekdays, but usually greater than 10 on the weekends. So that's why, you know, after a year of data, I decided, okay, for this year, let's keep weeknights open for the things that are popular, which is sports practices, water aerobics, swim lessons, and let's just keep open swim on the weekends, where our community has showed us that those are the days that they want to use the pool the most, is on the weekends. I also scheduled open swim later on Saturday, so Saturdays and Sundays is 3 o'clock to 6 p.m. And that's because I sent out a survey at some point where people said that's the time they want to use it more often. And then also most of our pool rentals are during the day between like 11 and 3. So that way pool rentals won't conflict with open swim times. And this is our pool schedule this year. So just keeping it really simple. This is September through December. We used to schedule the pool month by month, and I'd have all the lifeguard meetings, and it would be like a half-hour scheduling meeting. So this time we did like 1 hour schedule meeting. We scheduled everything out September through December. You know, things come up, rentals come up, and I can easily, you know, message them and get them to work. But we have the calendar set for all the high school kids to work for the next 3 months, which is nice. And then we did decide to keep Tuesday and Thursday morning lap swim. The numbers weren't necessarily high, but they were always really consistent. So we always had the same 2 to 4 people come every Tuesday and Thursday morning. Also, as a school district, we really want to promote wellness and exercise. So I promoted this to the teaching staff, like, hey, come in early on Tuesdays and Thursdays, work out, find a friend, it's good for you. The lifeguards can also open up the multi-purpose room or the weight room so they can work out there too. So that's why we decided to keep Tuesday, Thursday mornings to promote that staff wellness. And then we will have a special open swim for Horse and Colt Show weekend. I'm talking to my lifeguards about how I'd like to do a special holiday swim or special occasion open swim for every holiday, and so we're gonna kind of play that by ear because they weren't sure about their holiday schedules yet. This past winter, we taught American Red Cross swim lessons. We chose Wednesday nights after sports practices because that's the only night where there are no games. and also the night where my lifeguards were most available. We had 2 classes. I had 6 high school lifeguards that taught with me. I wanted that, like 6 was twice as many as I needed, but I'm trying hard to build a program and teach these kids how to teach swim lessons and how to lifeguard, and so that's why I hired double, just so we could get everyone trained in on that, because, you know, as you know, the best way to learn how to teach is just to teach, and you gotta get your feet wet. There was literally. Alright, so there was an overwhelming 70 people who signed up for swim lessons. I had to close registration 1 week early and turn a few people away because we had limited space. We ended up teaching 61 kids and 15 parents because one of the classes was a parent and child aquatics class. We charged $35 per student and had a decreased rate for families with multiple children. We collected $1,870, but because I had hired so many lifeguards, that's how much they cost, so we made like $478. So, but like I said, my goal was to build a program and help the community more than make a lot of money on that. So, for summer school, we wanted to try something new. So in the past with the old pool, I used to teach summer school swim lessons with Todd Herrick's. And summer school would usually run for 3 straight weeks, and I think there would be about like 100, 125 kids enrolled in summer school, and every single kid who was enrolled with summer school would also come to the pool for 30 to 50 minutes to get swim lessons from lifeguards and Todd and I. That was overwhelming because we taught like 125 kids how to swim, and we would do the American Red Cross skills checkoff sheets, so every single kid would get like a little report card. So this year, it was suggested that if we pull swim lessons out of summer school, we can get more, and you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but we can get more money per child because they're attending more hours of summer school overall. So in June, we did Monday and Wednesday nights for 3 hours. So there's like 3 classes between 4 and 7. And we had 40 kids sign up, which was surprisingly low. When I would talk to parents and ask them why, they said that they didn't see it advertised, or they just like needed more advertisement or more reminders and things. And I was on maternity leave, so I tried to do a good job with advertising, but obviously I didn't do good enough. And then other parents just said it was so different, they weren't used to it, they were confused. You know, I had to tell people over and over again, these are free because they're through summer school, and they'd be like, oh, but isn't summer school in July? I'm like, it is, but we're doing some classes at, you know, different times throughout the summer. So, I think, you know, if we can try it again, and I think if it's the second time, people will, I don't know more about it or be more understanding of it. And then in July, we had the normal 2 weeks of summer school, and we took the 4K class during summer school hours from 9 to 10, and the kindergartners from 10 to 11. And then we had like an extra class after the buses would leave from noon to 1. And so that was a mix of kids for 30. We had scheduled that we were also going to do another 1 to 2, but I had too many parents say they weren't able to bring their child in for that hour of swim lessons. So I think if we do it again, we should try to coordinate swim lessons in a way that those students can have busing. So something to figure out for the future. But yeah, overall we taught about 70-ish kids total in July. Fall swim lessons. So last year we did winter for multiple reasons. This year we're going to do fall and spring. It doesn't conflict with basketball, and that way we can get more lessons into the year. So far I have 35 kids signed up for my 6 o'clock to 6:45 time. That's level 1, 2, and 4. I had to close that and now have a waiting list because so many people want to sign up. Parent and child aquatics, I hired an extra teacher. So American Red Cross recommends a 1 to 10 ratio with instructor to kids. So if I have 2 instructors, then I can have like 20 kids sign up for parent and child aquatics. It was suggested to me by multiple people to do an adult swim lessons class, and so far I only have 1 signed up. So I might take that 4:30 to 5 o'clock time slot and take all those overflow kids and put them in there. So just waiting for a few more people to sign up. Registration is supposed to close Wednesday. Jess Nelson tackled water aerobics this year and did an unbelievable job. She's been pretty much teaching water aerobics straight since January. She teaches like 2 to 3 times a week. She had 19 participants the first class, 23 people, 25 people. She's just had a big following of people, and she has collected a total of $2,905 so far in just water aerobics. So really proud of her for jumping in. I've gotten lots of emails from people in her water aerobics classes just raving about how good they feel and how thankful they are that we offer these classes. So that is something we'll definitely continue. And new issues for the pool this year. So North Crawford has contacted me. They would like to start renting the pool about once a month for their after school program. And then I also reached out to Lafarge to see if they wanted to use it for PE classes. For summer school, Lafarge buses their kids to Bigley, and I think they want to stay with that tradition because Bigley has all their own teachers as well. But yeah, I think the PE teacher's kind of waiting for things to settle down this September, and then is going to get back to me on if they'd like to bus kids for PE classes. Okay, so these are our current pool fees and wages. Nobody has ever bought a yearly pass, but there they are. Daily passes are typically what people do. Our pool rental is currently $75 an hour for the pool, plus the cost of lifeguards. And the multi-purpose room is just included with that. But if people wanted to use the multi-purpose room after their swim time, I would just charge $12 an hour to cover that lifeguard who has to stick around and make sure things are cleaned up and things are locked up. So far, our lifeguards are still very happy with this wage. And Jess Nelson and I are the only ones who have taught community swim classes so far, but I'm trying to get more teachers to become lifeguard certified so that they can teach more community ed classes if they want to as well. Pool rentals. So we had 5 in December, 1 in January, 4 in February, 1 in March, 3 in April, 2 in May, 2 in June, 1 in July, and 1 in September. We have earned a total of $3,648 in pool rentals so far. I think that's really awesome. Currently our fee, well, I told you what the fee was before, and it's plus the cost of lifeguards, which is always $24 an hour. When we initially did this, we thought, oh, well, people could, have their own high school lifeguards that wanted to volunteer, or, oh, maybe we'd only have one lifeguard if it was a small party. But after, so many rentals, I'm like, there's always got to be 2 lifeguards, because if something happens, there's always got to be 2. And so people got kind of frustrated by that when I was working with them to schedule pool parties, because they saw it as like a hidden fee. So I suggest that we create just one flat rate fee, this is how much it is to rent the pool per hour with the cost of lifeguards, because that plus the cost of lifeguards got really confusing to people. I also ran into some issues with the multi-purpose room this year, as far as people saying, well, what if I just want to rent the multi-purpose room for a couple hours and no pool? How much would that cost? And I go, I don't know, no one's ever done that. So I think
more than $12 an hour.
Yeah, so I think we need to kind of discuss and decide what we want that to be, because there are some people who say, well, I don't want to rent the pool for an hour, I just want to come to open swim from 3 to 6, and then, because I don't care if other people are at the pool with my kids for the party, but I want to use that multi-purpose room for my birthday cake and my presents and such. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to get a price on that then. So yeah, I was kind of thinking $80 an hour to rent the pool, but I'm still confused about, what should we charge for a multi-purpose room? So, open for discussion.
I think we also need to look back at our policies. The old policies actually had had some specific things. I don't know, maybe you remember, Erin, it was probably more your domain, because it isn't just that, because you gotta think about the all-purpose room, the conventional all-purpose room, and some other things.
Yeah, the fees were pretty minimal in the
They were
past.
extremely minimal. I don't know if they even covered the
Yeah,
cleanup.
they were very minimal, and, I think, first of all, give credit to Anna. I think she's done awesome.
Yep.
Just from an element of the community, I think we've always had that it doesn't get advertised enough, they don't know. I think other than passenger pigeon, she has given every opportunity for everybody in this area to know about the pool and show up and get there. I think the other really cool thing, just, with the kids, is the amount of staff that she's gotten involved, which has been really cool too. But going back to what you said, yes, it was very minimal. And I think with it a lot, if I remember right, it might have been $25, or even it was just we charged just to charge for the lifeguard, basically, to take care of it, which was extremely minimal, but
But we didn't have parties in here
Exa-
too much, I mean.
we didn't have a
4-H club
ton,
used
you
to
know,
come
there
like
wasn't a
once
lot of
year or
it that we
something,
had. I mean,
kind
we
of
had
thing,
some, but it's certainly a lot more now.
yeah.
I think as I look at it now, it's like, we had it super minimal, where like Anna said, and I've heard it too, and we've heard it at board meetings, on the other end, there's the sticker shock of some of this, like, holy cow, it's, you know, I wanna have a pool party for my kid, and it's gonna be $200 for 2 hours. So it's like, I don't know, is
But the
there,
truth of the matter is, can you, you know, you need to have an idea from these people, how many people they're talking about, cause they can say, I don't care if other people are there, but if they're bringing
Right.
30 kids to swim,
Mhm.
and I show up with my grandsons and go, this isn't fair, this isn't an open swim.
right,
So
right.
not offer a pool, like a birthday party during open swim time then?
Well, I liked what you were saying about you moved the open.
That's what I was
space.
looking at more to find
That
it.
was right. You know,
Somewhat
as
of a
far as
better rate
deciding
where it's
on
not
fees,
paid.
I'd feel comfortable if you guys work on what you think is fair or what you know, I mean, I have no idea, like in the multi-purpose room, if that's all they're renting, is there any problem with that? I don't know, like the floor surface, what is stuff different, I don't know what could happen if you had people in there doing.
When I have a
But
pool rental,
I
I
don't
send them like
know.
a list of things that they need to be aware of for that floor, cause it is slightly special flooring, like you can't wear like stiletto heels in there, or, use certain cleaners.
Do we get a deposit for, you
Yeah,
know,
do you
that
get
kind
a
of thing? I mean,
deposit?
I don't know, cause I really don't know how they work, but.
Yeah,
as
so
opposed to
far
the
we've just
board
been
making
saying,
a
here's,
decision, I just-
you know, folding tables and chairs, and here's the rules of the floor, and so far we haven't had any issues.
Maybe we just go by to. Isaac had a party there.
How did you feel from a cost perspective, Isaac? I mean, I guess as a board member / community member.
So, I mean, I think for a private pool rental, right, you're renting the pool out for just your group, it seems very reasonable to me.
Right.
Because I feel like if you compare it to other things you can do as a party, like, you can go bowl for 2 hours, I'm gonna pay at least that, if not more.
Right.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you're looking at that. I do like the idea, I understand what you're saying, like, you know, there's 30 kids here for open swim, but, I mean, really, 30 kids could show up for open swim anyways, right? So, I do like the idea of having some kind of options to say, this is still open swim, it's open to the public, it's not a private party, but I wanna reserve just the room to do a private party, and if we could put a price to that, I think that'd be worthwhile to do.
Okay.
And if you do more, like you said, where the parties tended to be earlier and then the open swim was later, so that you didn't run into, I mean, that should alleviate some of it.
We would, before, we did it like that, so if somebody would come and say, hey, it was more of a heads up, like, I'm bringing a few kids to a party and they would wanna rent the all-purpose room, then I would say, what's the number? Because then if it was more than that, then you would regularly have for open swim,
Okay,
then you would charge them the extra for the lifeguard.
so I asked them.
So
the
if
number.
open swim was normally 1 or 2, and you know that X amount of kids are coming, you'd have to say, we're gonna charge you the extra above and beyond what it would normally.
But even the
be.
$25 for a couple extra hours of a lifeguard, I'm assuming you're charging them only for the extra one then,
Yeah,
but it is, I mean, wow.
Still, that's a even-
extremely reasonable,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I just want a flat rate, cause like
I-
lots of emails were sent back and forth to clarify to people, and they were really confused about the plus the cost of lifeguards thing.
Would you ever get the 3 lifeguards though, or is it always just 2?
Yeah, there was a first grade pool party where, you know, all the kids were ages 6 and 7, and not everybody knew how to swim. And parents weren't invited. So I said, okay, you just need to hire extra lifeguards. And so we had 2 lifeguards in the water with pool noodles, and they were like a human line, and they were like helping kids stay out of the deep end. So that was the only time we hired lots of extras, is when we have a lot of little kids without parent supervision or kids that don't know how to swim.
But that'd be an extra anyways, right? So I mean, if you base this always on 2, and
Yeah.
in special circumstances, you're doing extra.
And I don't know, like if it's just once, you know, that was one time that I think maybe twice out of the whole year that we had to do that. Do I have to charge them for that 3rd lifeguard then, or do we just, I don't know.
I think cleaner the better, you know, I think that sounds like your issue, you know, when people.
Like I just want it simple and clean.
Yeah, I think that's, you could average it out where it could be money-wise 2.5, you know you were always paying for it to be up to you, to, like, if there's a lot of kids who are gonna need a 3rd.
Mhm.
The parents probably don't need to be worrying about that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, do we ever get to a point where somebody just wants to rent the or the what do you call it?
Multi-purpose room,
Multi-purpose room? I don't want the pool, I just want the multi-purpose.
How many do you get of those, like people that just want the multi-purpose room?
There's probably 3 people that
So
asked me
just
that
a
this
few.
year.
What do they want it for, I'm curious, because if there's other places in the community that would suffice. if it-
One was a Christmas party, and they wanted the gym too, like a family Christmas party. And then the other 2 were just like, well, we just wanna bring our kids during open swim and then use that room for the pool party.
Do we rent out the gym separately?
We have not in quite a
And I-
while.
and I
We
think
have
with
had
the new
some
floor there, I
bad,
think
bad
I'd
experiences
go with-
that did
yeah.
not go well.
With the floor?
No, more with the baskets and hanging on the baskets
Oh.
and breaking the rims and,
Oh, wow.
so it's been a number of years we used to, and it was not going super well, so we have not in a number of years.
So do we do need board approval with this rate, so you guys are gonna vote on that next meeting, correct? Is that the plan? So do you like want me to talk more with like Aaron, cause he's been doing this for longer, and then come up with a price and then you can vote on it next week?
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be
so.
fine, yeah, but if you guys come up with something you
Sure.
think of, what
Sounds good. But I just wanted to kinda get your opinions and feedback, especially, somebody who's a community member who's rented it too.
And check the policies on, with all these new policies now, check that facilities thing, at least to scan through it and see if there isn't something there
Right.
that would raise any red flags or anything. Not that we have to be bound by that, because we can change policies, but since we have all those fancy new policies.
Look at them and see.
Yeah, let's look at them once in a while.
Most of the other feedback, I think when we did a party, I've heard other people say too, like having the multi-purpose room right there next to the pool versus the all-purpose room
Mhm.
is a
Yeah.
huge,
Mhm.
it's much better. I mean, we didn't get that, so that was
Yeah.
early on before we were
And
figuring
like
things
part of the
out,
reason
so.
you didn't get that is we didn't have the chairs and the tables ordered yet either. So it was like multiple reasons. But this year, I talked to Dustin Clements, the wrestling coach, and he will at least push his mats off to the side. So he can't take them all down because they're like physically command stripped and taped to the wall. And so he would have to buy like all new command strips and tapes to get that back up. But he can at least remove the center so that there will be space to put up tables and chairs and walk.
I think that was, I heard a lot of people really like that, just having
Mhm.
family be able to
Yeah.
watch kids in the pool and not have to
Yeah.
sit in the pool.
And I think that was your original intention when you
Yeah, that
designed the
was, as we
space.
were going through the design, that was a lot of the intention there.
So
Plus, we don't want them to have their food in there by the pool, and
oh yeah, that was one time, they just wanted to do an hour pool swim and they said, we don't need the multi-purpose room, we don't want it, we're not gonna do any food. And they brought cupcakes and it ended up all over the floor and the desk.
yeah,
and
that's,
like,
that's when you wanna charge them extra for cleaning.
Yeah, so if you have food, you must take the multi-purpose room. So we did receive some donations this year. Lots of different people donated goggles. I can't even remember them all. So many people donated. Like for the pool, they would have a birthday party and they would buy goggles for all the kids, and then they would say, "Oh, you can just keep all the extras," things like that. So that was really nice. We have a lot of goggles right now. Catherine Miller donated a really nice water-resistant Bluetooth speaker, which has made the pool a lot more fun this summer because we always have music playing in the background when we have open swim. So when we first opened, I did have people say "Wow, this is free. We don't have to pay at all. Can I donate money some way, shape, or form?" And I said, "Yeah, you can write a check to the district office." But I think if we had a donation box at the desk, I think people would really, because they have such gratitude and appreciation when they're there and they see that beautiful space. I think they're more likely to be like, "Oh, I have an extra 10 in my wallet. Let me just throw it in this box." So I was wondering if that's okay if I put up a donation box of some type, or what you thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then another idea that was suggested was an Amazon wish list. We had a lifeguard meeting in August, and they're like, "Oh, it'd be really cool if we had this, or it'd be really cool if we had that." And I've seen some teachers do this in the past, where they just create an Amazon wish list and share with the community and say, "Hey, these are the things, some things we'd like for our pool. If you feel so called, you're welcome to purchase this for us." Is there anything?
Yeah, that's fine as well.
All right, cool. And then lifeguards and I talked, and we'd also like to sign up for a few concessions this year to help offset the cost of the school paying for their lifeguard certification and any other pool expenses that come up. And that was all I had.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Thank you guys.
Good work, Tina.
Annie, you were definitely the right person to take on the
Yes.
full
Aw,
logistics.
thank you.
Wow.
She also did an excellent job. I came to my husband and I both came down to the little open house last October when she did a really good job of doing tours.
Oh, yeah,
with
the
groups
tour
of
day.
people and, you know.
I used to be a tour guide in college.
Well, they asked a lot of questions and,
You're under the sea swim, I think, with the booster club one. It seemed to go really well as well, and I don't think you were there, right? You
No,
were-
I couldn't. My whole family got COVID that week.
But I thought that was a really cool thing that you guys did, as a kind of a special one-off occasion. It seemed to have a lot of participation.
Yeah.
There's a ton of kids there that night.
That's kind of what I want to do more this year is like, even though we're doing less open swim, like let's just plan more special community events and that way it'll be an open swim where more people come because it's
There's
special.
a reason to go because
Yeah.
of something
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, that's
great.
Well, to me, this has been wonderful to see because going through the whole pool issue, right, there were lots of lengthy discussions about what the pool should look like, and if we do this, who will use it, oh, if we do this, we won't get these users, but we've got a pool, kids are learning to swim, and it's being used by the community. From the numbers, quite a
It
bit.
is.
That's great.
And being used by students probably more than I realized with the sports
Yeah.
teams and,
Yeah.
so, great.
So I'm excited
Wonderful.
about it too.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice
Bye,
job.
good job.
So you're not gonna hang around for 2 hours?
2 hours?
2 hours.
What are you talking about? There's no hidden agenda tonight now, come on.
Oh, and by the way, Aaron, as a wildlife guy, I have to say, passenger pigeons are extinct.
So exactly, there's no better way to do it.
All right, then, we'll move on to expense vouchers and receipts. Earl, you got some comments?
Oh, there's a few. Under Dustin Clemens in P cards, the sports socks, it was football fund for socks, trading that one. Question on whether we have more than one Amazon Prime holder was the question we had. Jennifer Melfi's got one listed, so well, she does a lot of ordering like that for it, so. And then Kent Peterson's Chippewa Valley Sports, there's football uniforms like that, knee pads and mouth guards, and volleyballs. More expensive than I thought they were, so. And plus probably scorebooks and that for that. Then we get into monthly expenses, this got to page 4, just, GFL Environmental, they had a special dumpster down there to throw some stuff in. And, 'cause we got a Town Countries does our waste otherwise, our, dryer that was in the school for years, give up, and so we had to get a new dryer for down where the custodian uses it for, I'm guessing, washing their mops and stuff like that up. Precision control for boiler repair was, sensors, 4 sensors, and it's an annual check it before the heat season comes, so, and then they need some flame igniters on that. And then, Baird model was also included, for how to point out and use, referendum. Put in scenarios and help you work through it. And that is all I have tonight.
Any questions or comments? If none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the expense vouchers and receipts.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Janet. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Did I hear Rich or?
I'm in favor.
Okay, just making sure you're still with us, Rich.
Yep.
Then we'll move on to the consent agenda, which tonight includes minutes from our August 9th regular board meeting, the minutes from the August 14th Building Grounds Transportation Committee meeting, minutes from the August 21st special board meeting and the retreat on the same day. We also have a field trip request for the seniors to attend a Brewers trip, Brewers game in May. Graduation date for this spring, May 24th, a Friday at 7. And then Mr. Wood would like to have a basketball raffle, a raffle for the basketball program. And then we do have a donation to the school from the Maz Art Project, $940 dedicated to the band program.
Make the motion to approve the consent, or approve items on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Earl to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on then to the single item on our action agenda, the transportation agreement with the Lafarge School District. Kim, do you have background on this?
Sure, our previous agreement, withheld any type of, transportation of Lafarge students back to Lafarge. And Jeff was really struggling this season in particular with having both football and cross country. So would just like to have a little flexibility and to make some common sense decisions about helping them out. Both he and Ken said that several times Lafarge has helped them out with transportation. So he just doesn't want to feel restricted by this agreement at this time. He feels like he wants to continue this working relationship. And there are times when it would benefit both parties if he could offer to help give one of the sports a ride back.
I'll give you an example, because I did talk to Jeff, today, was the middle school football game last week, and, you know, we're in pretty good shape with bus drivers, but just the way it was scheduled, the party had to bring students down for football practice. Our students had to get up there for a middle school game. Normally, their kids come here to practice, but for games, we go there. We didn't have a bus back from a bus route yet, so their driver waited and took our kids up. And that's the kind of thing he's talking about, not a regular, like, we're gonna start taking their kids back after practice every night and things, because we try to nix that, because we don't take our own kids home after practice, you know, so.
Right.
But, you know, I think they've done this, you know, and having a husband who drove bus until this last couple of years. There's been times when we have a bus in the shop and they've lent us a school bus to run around with, or vice versa. You know, so if that's the kind of thing, and that sounded like it was, is, you know, I don't know that we need board action, but if Jeff feels
Oh, yeah, he
a
didn't
little
wanna
more like,
negate that agreement, but, yeah, sometimes those common sense decisions, he just wants that flexibility to know he's.
Yeah, what kind of agreement do we need? I mean,
I
would be
guess
in favor of him having discretion on that kind of stuff. I hope that we didn't
I mean,
intentionally.
we're
try
both
to
small,
limit his
we've gotta
discretion, so.
work together on some of these things. And if anybody's, you know, I see no problem with just saying this, but we did talk about having a joint board meeting, or was that
Yeah.
meeting I wasn't here for, that you guys talked about?
Yep.
That, you know, that would be something we could talk about there too, what other departments.
Was that a motion, Isaac?
What motion do we need, just,
Well, it's on the action agenda, I guess, just to allow Jeff flexibility to make those types of decisions.
yeah, I guess I would make a motion to grant Jeff, the discretion to make those kind of decisions.
I'll second.
Motion by Isaac, second by Bo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Action agenda is behind us. Although we have a beefy informational agenda ahead, so we'll get rolling with a couple discussion items. The first being Kim's first year superintendent evaluation framework. Most of us were able to attend the retreat down in Soldiers Grove a few weeks ago, a month ago. And we were treated to, I thought, a really nice presentation by Fran, forget his last name, but the guy from WASB, who talked about the framework they've put together for superintendent evaluations, their online resources, and some of those Fran handed out at the meeting, really offer an abundance of resources for school boards that want to put together a working evaluation process with their superintendent. They did, I'll just kind of, in 2 minutes I promise, but I'll sort of summarize my remembrances, my takeaway from that session. A couple things, they did distinguish the first year evaluation from the second and all subsequent year evaluations. In their first year, I think you've got a summary of the prompts or the questions as an attachment in the board packet. But the way they, I think, were recommending school boards engage with a superintendent in the first year is very different than the process in all subsequent years. Essentially, you're given a series of very general questions. You know, did the superintendent adhere to all policies? Did they behave professionally? Did they, engage the community in an open, did they build confidence in staff? All very good questions to ask as part of an evaluation, but not, I would consider those sort of broad brush strokes. The second and subsequent year evaluation prompts, I think they called them, but the individual criteria, and there were 11 of them, I think, in their packet and on their website, are a little more detailed. And we had a discussion about whether or not to follow that process and have sort of a pre-superintending evaluation in the first year, and then the way I viewed it, kind of get serious about it in the second year and start to attach things to our mission and our values, et cetera, or do we just jump right in and select some of those prompts that they designate as second year and beyond in Kim's first year? So that's, I guess, one decision we need to make. And one comment I make, we don't have to finish this tonight, right? If, we could share thoughts about what we think Kim's priorities, goals should be, at least generally in the first year, whether they come from WSB's list of first year evaluation prompts or the more thorough list of metrics. Maybe Kim and I or anybody else interested could sit over the next month and actually start to build what that document, what that evaluation metric might look like in the first year, and then come back next month. Otherwise, we will be here for 2 hours and probably well beyond today. But anyway, those are kind of
If I understood you to say you and Kim would work on that, I think that's a good way to do it. I mean,
it'd be good to get feedback tonight about what if we probably don't wanna stick Kim with all 11 of those
No.
very high end, but a
what did
few
you
sort
say
of
that day?
priorities.
He said that too, don't you? Oh, you want to tell me?
Yeah. I'll just throw, the one I remember from our previous retreat that we had talked about that I would like to see included as something to work toward is communication with the community. We had talked about that a year plus ago as something that the school could work on, could improve. So community relations, communication, developing strategies to bring what's happening at school to the broader community, the constituents, the families, the taxpayers who don't have kids in school, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to see communication as one of the measurables. I'm not gonna say anything else till somebody else wants.
It's kinda hard to think, I would be willing to also, I have, like standards that you kinda base your schooling and your learning on, and I can share those out, they're kinda main focuses. And then bring back like a type of survey about what you feel is important, or kind of the direction that you would wanna go. So I can help that process if you want more time to kind of think about it and internalize some of the strengths or weaknesses that you would really like to see to go in the
Well, and this
direction.
is supposed to be a very cooperative sort of process this first year and stuff, so
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay. So then we can just pull feedback in that respect and
Sure.
then build some goals and.
If you wanna share those, and then if board members wanna by email at any time, say in the next week or so, email Kim and I your thoughts about what priorities moving forward.
Are we gonna pick from that prompts list, or we just open-ended?
Well, the way I look at those prompts is, it gives you some things to think about. It's really hard, at least for me, to sit down and think, all right, what are the big goals for a superintendent? But those prompts at least give you something to think about. You can pull from them, or they might stimulate other thoughts and ideas.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we said when we met before was just, you know, especially if we're gonna use the format they have when we get to year 2 and beyond, that there might be some logic in, you know, I don't know, bringing some of those things forward and saying, all right, this is what we talked about year 1, so we don't necessarily have to, I guess, reinvent the wheel, you know, at year 2. So, not that it has to be word for word, but at least a starting point if we go back and I don't know if there's a better way to get those versus trying to follow the 10-step process to get to that, that very helpful app that they have, or if we can just create our own document for that, that's a little simpler, to kind of, this is all of them, and let's kind of pick from this as far as what we wanna target. I think 3 was the number, I remember.
Yep.
So, that'd be my thought anyways, I just don't like the idea of, we kind of come up with our own list here for the first year, and then the next year we're kind of changing, I guess, pivoting to pre-populated. And that's what really confused me about why their system's set up that way. It just doesn't make that sense.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with the online party shows. I mean, it was like, I like the idea, the model, but I don't like their tool. Didn't seem very
So
useful.
I talked to Lisa and Ellie at CISA as well, and they kind of guide our other evaluation processes. And she said the superintendents all have something different that they're evaluated. And they have developed one, and part of she wanted to work through more of it with Ellie. But part of her process of that evaluation included a survey of the staff. So, that might be something that you might wanna consider, some different components of what. I think she's got really good insight, and I've liked how she's led our evaluations for the teachers, so.
And they might be things that would be, as I look at these list of prompts, you know, and we also talked about things having to be measurable and that, and some of them, like, has the superintendent effectively overseeing the operation and managing the school district? Well, yeah, that's a pretty basic thing, but does that really tell me exactly what we're looking for? Does that really give me a clue as to what did I see that indicated, yes, you're doing this? What can, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So if you've got.
And Fran emphasized that during a part of his talk. He talked about the SMART objectives.
Yeah.
Gotta be measurable, right? And that's something else everybody on the board should be thinking about. Once we have this evaluation framework codified, throughout the year, when it comes time to meet with Kim and talk about progress toward goals, et cetera, we need to be able to communicate to her observations, right? So get related to this goal, building relationships with the community. Kim, I heard you went to the village board meeting. Check. You know, I saw you at 9 football games, check, you know, or whatever, those types of things. So it's, we don't just wait until it's time for a meeting with Kim pursuant to her evaluation and then look back. We have to, throughout the year, be sort of documenting things that we've seen or heard during board meetings or outside board meetings that relate to those goals. And we can really provide some good feedback. So, a couple other thoughts I'll share. During the latter part of Fran's talk, WASB has the entire evaluation tool online. So, but they don't allow you to develop your own goals, right?
That's good.
It's relative to their goals, and then it's like a 1 through 4 ranking. And to me, that's just too rigid, right? I'd rather, we don't need to use any of this stuff. I really like the information that's on their site in terms of, again, fodder to stimulate thought and to focus some of the evaluation metrics, but I'd rather it more be about identifying priorities and then communicating with Kim about successes and areas that could be improved, et cetera. Because bottom line, you know, evaluations, and I'm glad Kim brought up the staff survey, performance evaluations way too often can be thought of punitively or, you know, in fear, like I don't, but, you know, good leaders seek that kind of input, right? You're always seeking to improve. And I think that's, I'm sure everybody on the board has that in mind here, but one of the things that I'd like to see, and Kim and I chatted about this too, is a survey of staff. Because we see Kim for a couple hours, or sometimes 4 hours, once a month, and then there's 4 40-hour weeks in between where she's having an impact and being impacted by relationships here. So I think, you know, an anonymous survey of staff regarding Kim's performance is also very informative in terms of where to go in the future. So I like that idea. And Kim's open to it, right? Very open. So, unless anybody has any specific areas of focus or topics, I guess we could move on. The one thing, Janet, you mentioned the prompts, and I see, look, is that the first year?
Yeah, that's the first year is in here now, the
The-
other, there isn't anything for the second year in here, but you said it's online on that.
Well, it's online, but
Okay, good.
it's not, maybe what I'll do is I'll pull that offline somehow and email it to everybody.
That sounds good.
And those are the, I think they still call them prompts or whatever, but they're for the second year. Yeah, they're more fleshed out, a lot more detailed than just a list of questions.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Can you remind me to do that?
I can get something by next week or something.
So, a couple thoughts I had, Scott, when you're talking about communication, you know, I think putting some more definition around that, you know, as far as communication with the community is one thing you mentioned specifically, but I think, maybe just the ability to facilitation of communication with staff back to like the board, and I think that's something that has been mentioned before, it'd just be nice to have a little better, to make sure that we have the right feedback from the staff, and, you know, it's not only funneling through, I guess it's kind of your role and Amy's role too, but just kind of making sure we're getting that feedback from them, and maybe we talked once about appointing somebody to represent the staff to be at some of these, maybe at the board meetings, I don't know if that's something we want to talk through, but. So it's just kind of communication with public, communication, I think, between staff and board, the other kind of angles of what that communication is specifically.
That's a good thought. I think we were talking about the KTA at that time. Did they express any interest in, or did you talk to them about?
No, I don't think I have talked to the team.
Okay. But you remember when
I
we-
will, yeah,
there was
I wrote that down.
invitation for them, if they want. But yeah, it's good. Anything else?
So I think one of the other things I just jotted down, I think probably before too, is just, what is our financial goals? I think is one of the metrics we should look at and how we wanna write that. And obviously, I think you can only control so much, so maybe it's just, how we're monitoring that, or how we're, and I think partially goes back to our conversation with the board retreat around how we wanna do, expense review. I think this is a great tool, so thank you for this as a starting point, but, just, I think some goals around that, what that should look like would be helpful.
Agreed. Any other thoughts? So I will pull that list of 11 prompts. Well, maybe I won't, because if you click on each of those prompts, there's a lot of buried information behind them. It would be a hell of a long file.
Maybe we can see like a Word document that has all that stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe I will try to pull it all. I could copy and paste it into a Word document.
Yeah, because it could just be like, here's your major sections and some of the subcategories are below it.
Yeah.
I think that might help us just kind of move, instead of just throwing things out from our guys, what's out there, what questions have they specifically written that we can maybe tailor around a little bit?
Has everybody successfully logged into the WASB website? Username, password?
Did it retreat, having sense.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll try to pull it out, cause I could just figure out what the flow is,
Yeah.
but I'll pull that off and get it to everybody. And once you get it, look through those for any other topics.
Tim, you, at the beginning, you mentioned something about from your programs, and you have some like that too, so maybe if you could, sorry about this. You could, share those with us too.
Yep, I will.
Any other parting shots related to it, or we can sit and
Yep.
maybe give a week or 10 days for the folks to share their thoughts? All right. Moving on to committee meeting structure then, and this, again, this is something we're probably not gonna finalize tonight, if anybody has thoughts about changing the current list of committees or their duties, whatever, but, to continue the discussion and see where it goes tonight. We did get into this quite a bit at the retreat, and there, I think the overarching goal would be to ensure that our committees best support the work we do, the administration, provide the best value to the mission on behalf of the kids here. And if they're the current committees and we're doing the most with what we've got, then fine, but folks did share some thoughts, and I'll share one thought that a board member shared, that the committees could be better organized, not better organized, but the committee chairs could take a more active role in developing agendas, working with Marla, Kim, to put agendas together and get them out just as a, to take ownership of those agendas, but also to save time on the administrative side. And I know I'm guilty. I chaired one committee for a while, and I didn't do a thing except receive the agenda and show up to the meeting and.
The only thing is, guys, honestly, typically, it's usually the administrator who's the one that knows we need to do this, or I need input on that, and that kind of thing. I mean, buildings and grounds probably has the most meetings of committees and the most regular meetings, so I mean, on that one, you could probably just practically client on a monthly meeting or something. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but other than each of the committee chairs coming, you know, unless, I don't know how we started, once we start. I just, and maybe it's just because that's the only way I've seen it in all these years, is the need for a meeting generally comes from that end.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I suppose there could be exceptions, like looking at this, like, we need a committee meeting sometime in the next couple of months to talk about how the insurance thing is going, and any concerns about that, and where are we at, you know, with the financials on that and stuff. You know, so sometimes I think board members maybe have things that they should feel more free to come forward with, but.
Yeah, it's a good point. Certainly the communication between each committee chair and Kim is gonna be important, but
Yeah.
the more we can take off Kim's shoulders, administration's shoulders, the better. So it's gonna be a two-way street. I don't
Well,
think
what
the
we
committee's
could
gonna
do is
move
say some
away.
committee member's gonna take the minutes at that meeting, and at least alleviate the administrator having to do that. I mean, they don't have
Minutes
to be
would be good.
fancy, I mean, they could be what the topic is, a couple a sentence or two on the discussion and the recommendation, I mean.
So, in this context, I'll just suggest something, and I actually hate suggesting it because as a committee chair in a past life with the state, I was charged with developing these, all the committee chairs were, but, right now we've got these committees, and I've got an understanding, everybody I think does, about what each committee does. But if we could have each committee develop at least a general, what we call at the state, a committee charter that talks about, membership, responsibilities, meeting frequency, what this committee is charged with handling, what sort of recommendations it needs to develop to bring to the board, et cetera, so rather than just a name, if you talk about any of these committees, it might just be one page, but it details what that committee's in charge of. Might clarify to some extent how these committees function. I don't know if that would be valuable.
Or that's what we should do here, is identify what those things are, and then by being part of that, I guess that's what you're.
It would certainly be helpful when we have new members, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
But, we also talked about, like, personnel committee being terminated and just going to a representative of the board, which, I don't know if we need to officially put that on as action item on an agenda in the future. It seemed like there was general consensus to that, but.
Yeah, I thought we could step through each of the committees tonight, at least briefly talk about, are they operating at peak efficiency, or do they need to exist, or could they be modified or changed?
We'll start with the easy one then, Scott, buildings, grounds, and transportation. We just, we didn't have the transportation in our thing there, but, I mean, that's the obvious one, it kinda says what it is, and I don't think we have to worry about that too much. And we really do utilize that committee, partly
Yep.
because we've got Earl, whose knowledge of this building, and he says.
Yeah, that's a committee, we didn't have any questions or concerns about what that committee
Right.
does, it's performing a vital role.
I think my only concern with that is we need to get down to the capital projects. I think there's some
Yeah.
conversation that existed and just needs to be maybe clarified and put top of mind and.
And as a committee, you probably do need to regroup and kind of get, because we used to get every couple of years, it kind of rotated through, like, here's a list of what we're working on, well, now that one's gone, that one's gone, something else kind of gets worked in, and between the committee and DJ and administrators, it usually got worked out, but we did talk about that a little bit that day.
And I've never served on that committee, but DJ's certainly at all the meetings, right? Like,
Yes.
it's part of the,
Needs to happen here and there, so.
yeah. So yeah, it's building grounds, personnel, we might as well jump to that. We had this discussion at the retreat, and I kind of agree with Isaac, I was on that, I think, for a year, and, I think if we're hiring teachers, teachers are the best assessors, evaluators of potential teachers. I felt like I served a role when I was on the interview panels, but I don't, know which school produces the best English teachers, and I don't know who develops the best lesson plans or whatever. I'm just not a public school teacher, so I always felt like my input was, which I provided, but I was like, felt like a kindergartner playing clarinet at a high school band concert, right? Like
And principals, correct me if I'm wrong, but we never used this personnel committee for anything else, really. I mean, you guys and probably, the principals and administrators did the, like, reviewing when we used to get applications.
Yeah.
Did all the reviews and the, choosing who was gonna be interviewed and all that. I mean, I was on that committee off and on too, and all we ever did was, we got an opening for this. I guess usually the chairperson, they'll let you know, like, if, oh God, we got a resignation,
I think probably the dynamics of the applicant pool has completely changed the
Yeah.
personnel committee, because it used to be one where we had a number of people, and so
Yeah.
you'd have 2 or 3 on board, you'd have a couple teachers, you'd have a student, you'd have somebody else, and now we have 1 applicant.
And now it's more important that we trust them to choose a good person and act fast.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
which is another argument for not have a committee and.
Yeah, just reach out to the board, get a representative, and I think that's all you really need.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
So disband, the thought is, at least right now.
As a standing committee, that maybe we don't.
Yep.
And if applicant pools change, and that becomes, a big good.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Let's create that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, policy committee serves, I think, a vital function. The only, and Janet, you've been part of that a lot longer than me, it seemed like we just got through a pile of review.
Oh, that was a whole new, that whole Neola
Yeah.
thing, Earl's been on long enough to know too, that was just
So,
totally,
so the demands on that committee are gonna be less.
but apparently there is something out there, I mean, they do, usually we would look at Christie and say, they do, like twice a year or something, and they do packets of updates that, some of
And
them
we meet
legally
with-
required and some of them just suggested.
We meet with Scott Brown from Neola,
The 19th.
the 19th. We have a review, find out what next steps we need to take, or,
And that's just,
just us, yeah, the newbies.
Yeah, he's gonna help Marlo and I.
okay, but then once you do that, the committee needs to meet to go through this hopefully not big packet of changes.
It'll be less cumbersome than
Yeah.
it was for that year.
Yeah.
So I just had a thought, we're being exposed to a lot of, well, we always have been, but now the winds are a little bit warmer coming out of Madison, but, the way politics is inserting itself into the health of our public schools, I'll just put it like that, it would be neat if if all board members, myself included, could attain a better understanding of what's currently happening in the Capitol that influences our present day and our future, and could maybe engage more proactively directly with the legislature, at least our local legislators like Lauren. And so maybe the policy committee could become a legislative and policy committee that would meet regularly, every 2 months, 3 months, whatever, but would keep up to date on bills as they're introduced and move through committee that have some impact on our school functions, including finance, which is the big thing, but, and then could report back to the board, so our board is, you know, more up to date on things that are gonna have an impact on. Just a thought. Just as a board member over the last few years, I don't do as good a job as I should. I subscribe to that. I get emails, legislative updates, anything related to education.
Yeah, I get
And I probably open every third email that comes in, cause life's busy like it is for all of us, right? But if we had some organized committee focused on that, you know, there'd be a reason. Well, we got a committee meeting, we gotta know what's happening with Assembly Bill 394 or whatever.
And with our local legislators, you remember who was it before Oldenburg, we actually had him at a meeting once and felt with open.
Lee?
Yeah, he was here.
Nearson.
Yeah, Nearson, yeah.
So,
Not a bad idea, to be honest, you know, what I see with the small schools though, or have seen is, it usually ends up being your district administrator who is the one that actually is the contacts legislators and advocates and lobbies, and of course WASB does too.
and who communicates with them? It could be Kim, the board president, both, it doesn't, but having more than just one person
Yes.
tracking that stuff and sharing ideas and explaining things, over time, then you have a body that is up to date and knowledgeable about all these bills and their potential impacts, and then if Kim wants to take, you know, a recommendation from the committee that's gone to the board to Lauren, and say, listen here, so, that was the thought, but, good idea? I mean, to me, that's, we spend a lot of time, every school board spends a lot of time reacting to stuff that comes out of the legislature, budget-wise, policy-wise, whatever. And it would be nice to sort of front-load that a bit by seeing it before it goes to vote in Madison, and at least doing what we can to. So, negotiations and handbook also serving a vital function. I have to make one comment though, I need to,
Yeah, I just thought of this.
Yeah. I was gonna mention that at the retreat and I forgot, but I need to step off that, I think I certainly need to step off that committee, cause I am married to somebody who works here and is impacted by those negotiations, so there's a conflict of interest, I think, very clearly. So if anybody, you don't have to step forward tonight, but as of now, I'm gone, cause I really
That
should.
leaves Rich and myself, I think, so we need, basically, and unfortunately Bo has the same conflict, so, we need Earl, Isaac, or Peggy, I guess, to step forward, so. And this is also the committee that's been dealing with insurance part two, since that's basically part of their benefits, and technically they don't negotiate it.
But aside from that, you three can think maybe before next month if you'd be interested, and I could maybe swap onto whatever committee you come off of to make room, but, or maybe our list of committees will look very different.
That's true too.
But in general, I think the negotiations and handbook committee's vital, and it is active and serves an important
Yeah.
role.
It's active more during certain times of the year, but I think with insurance this year, it'll probably be a little more, so.
Any other thoughts on that committee? Sorry, pregnant pauses. And then, I guess the last committee is the budget review. touched on all the other, and Isaac, I know you made the point that perhaps we could just put the P card and check receipts, et cetera, in the packet and review them as a board rather than assigning that to a specific committee.
I agree, I don't know that, you know, I think if somebody has a question on it, maybe, since Melissa comes to our meetings, to get it emailed to her that day so that she knows it ahead of time and can, you know, can just answer any major concerns there. Because a lot of times some of the things that come up there, they're not super important anyway, it's just, you feel like it.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, just-
It's been very seldom in the last couple of years, Earl might remember more than me, but there's been a few times where somebody's objected to something or something that's come up that, well, maybe we really shouldn't pay that, or maybe we better check on this or something, but that doesn't happen very often, does it, you know?
Well, in my mind, it's just so hard to understand what you're actually looking at. And you guys, you know, obviously you've been doing it so long that you can pick out the outlier.
Yeah,
I'll speak for myself, but I have a hard time picking that outlier, I'll just say that. And as I look through there and, you know, there's 500
You're right,
entries of
cause that's it,
Amazon.com,
some of the
and it's
questions
really hard
are
to
like,
find.
okay, it's Jennifer Melfi and it's, or it's Kent and it's Chippewa Valley. You know, it's like, okay, it's probably sport stuff and they let it go and stuff, but I don't know.
And that's where I think there'd be more value, especially if at some point we have to have a better understanding of what our total budget is and where the budget dollars are going. And you suggested, Scott, was, you know, we look at this on a more quarterly basis and it's a deeper dive on what is our budget, where are we spending the dollars, and other places that we need to consider, you know, adjusting that moving forward. You know, I think that'd be a better conversation than us trying to pick out the one-off.
So maybe the committee could be molded into a finance committee that meets quarterly, to work with the business administrator and administrator to review budgets and identify.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Are there any, so I'll just run down. Buildings, grounds, transportation, pretty much stays, as is. Personnel be disbanded, though board members can be called upon to help with hiring decisions as requested. Policy committee stays, but could add a legislative function, legislative review function. Negotiation and handbook committee stays, budget review could be converted into a finance committee to take periodically a deeper dive into the budget and actually see where those dollars are coming from and going.
Yeah. Budget instead of expenses, definitely.
Yeah.
Can I back up to personnel just for a second, so for the sake of the administrators, if we disband the committee, are we still looking at a board member generally being invited to sit in on interviews, or not, just so they kinda know where they're sitting at, cause before at least you kinda knew, yeah, I should call around and get a board member. I
I think
still
they
kind
should
of
be
like
welcome.
the idea of, I mean,
It's
Yeah,
nice to
I don't
have-
always wanna be the one doing it
Right.
necessarily, but,
I think it's nice to have that representation, and for the candidates.
and I will tell you that when we ask, as president, when we ask people what committees they wanna serve on, there's always lots of people that wanna be in personnel. And even knowing over the past few years that that's all it's been, is interviewing people, but, you know, people, I think, there's board members that like to do that, I never minded doing it, but, so.
I agree, in a situation like ours, I think the value is more from the applicant side. You know, if we want these people to come here, oh
Yeah.
wow, they had a board member, I must be important, right?
So as a general rule, we'd still like to keep that, but, I agree, I don't think we need a committee. And then, yeah, cause come to think of it, has the committee ever met as a committee. I mean, even then, you showed up for an interview, it's not like you're coming to a committee meeting.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
perfect, yeah.
Any other committees? Not that we need more committees, but just to round out the discussion. I just had a thought to put that to rest, and now I completely lost it. It's not gonna come back to me staring at Bo, apparently.
The only thing we had talked about was just an ad hoc committee.
That was it.
Mission statement.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
And I don't know, I mean, I assume some of this stuff on the board will probably follow up on that and probably part of your conversation here a bit, so. So I don't know if that needs to be something that's formal or just, you know, if that's just something that gets formed by anybody interested in participating.
Yeah, so that was it, thanks Isaac. At the retreat, we talked about, Kim started us down the path of reconsidering our mission and our core values, which I think is a great idea. It leads to a lot of good discussion about who we are and who we want to be type things, what our priorities are, how we can best serve students. And I don't know how long we spent on that, but not long enough, right? So, to continue that, we had talked about forming an ad hoc committee. So think about that. Maybe next month an agenda item, we could work toward formalizing our committees with tonight's discussion in mind, and we could
So is this-
populate that ad hoc committee.
Is the ad hoc one, you're thinking board members, are you thinking including staff, or
It should be
community, or?
a variety of
Yeah.
constituents, I think, is ideally what it should be. So, a few members from each, even, local businesses.
Yeah,
Right, are you thinking that too?
oh yeah. So what sort of timeline do we wanna, what were you thinking next month if we start really thinking about what that committee, ad hoc committee could look like? Is that good? How many community members, how many teachers? And so just thinking about that, on the back end of this, that's not gonna be probably a real brief process, hammering out core values, mission statement, but on the back end of it, having a mission statement, identifying core values is really important, but it doesn't influence anything unless you then link it to action, link those core values, the mission to actions, right? And so on the tail end of that committee work, there might be a lot more work, good work, important work generated. All right, how do we put this into practice type stuff? Which, that's what strategic planning's all about, right? Maybe down the road, that's where we're headed. And then, one other footnote, we had also talked about another ad hoc committee that would talk about some of the, the three big challenges, as we talked about them over a number of board meetings, but certainly at the retreat, related to enrollment declines, teacher recruitment and retention, and budgets. Trying to be proactive in terms of those three sort of, I think, daunting challenges. But I don't know how many committees and ad hoc committees we wanna start spinning off here, but, it would be nice to, well, for example, recruitment and retention, again, past position, we saw that as a challenge, so we formed what we called our active recruitment team, which I'll tell you, initially, I was appointed to. And initially, I thought, what a waste of time, geez. But after 9 months or a year, we really put some incredible recruitment practices into place that like tripled our number of applicants in the Wildlife Bureau and the DNR. I mean, we were reaching out to national conferences, we were advertising in places we never thought of before, we were increasing diversity, we were doing all this cool stuff, so. I don't know, again, I don't know how much bandwidth we all have to jump on all these new committees and create mission statements and pioneer a brave new future for Kickapoo schools, but those are real challenges. And we're either gonna keep getting 0 or 1 applicants, or we're gonna try to do something about it, so. Maybe next month we could talk about whether or not we as a group have the bandwidth to actually try to do something new in those regards.
At my PAC meeting the other day, we had lawyers speak to us on behalf of recruiting from other countries, especially for teaching those hard to fill positions like Spanish. And they're instilling a process that's relatively a quick turnaround, but it's really only for 3 years. So he said that's kind of the downfall at this point, but that's opening up doors for many schools, is to be able to bring in Argentina. So some are using that practice and they're finding a lot of favor in it.
It was a great outside the box idea, it's wonderful.
I'm glad you went to that. Did you do it via Zoom or did you go
No,
down?
I was, Jamie said he thought it was important that I be in person for a while.
When you're new.
Yeah.
So.
And it was, there were quite a few people there.
All right, so again, next month, maybe we can distill what we talked about tonight and actually start to hammer out some, our future list of committees. All right. Moving on then to the activity fund accounts. And there was an attachment, I think.
Yeah, they, that's the attachment. I think it's just information to share what the activity accounts look like at present. And the negative, remember, is actually a positive.
Negative is
I
good.
wasn't gonna ask, but I still don't get that.
Yeah, every time I see that.
Why,
Yeah,
I have to
that's
know,
good.
why is it? Why is a negative good?
I don't know, we'll have to have
What?
politics.
We owe them money, right?
There you go, think of it like that. It's their money and we're holding it, so we
We owe
will
them
have
money, so we
money.
owe them money.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
It's a credit balance, it's an equity account. Not just the way the software prints it out.
Yeah, everybody's in good shape, so.
Is there a point where it gets too high, you know, like looking at the band one, I mean, is there a point where you almost want them to use it, or?
They
So they
will.
will, yeah.
Yeah,
For their trip,
yeah, oh, I see, okay,
so
gotcha.
it's kind of,
There kind of needs to be a reason why. it's
Yeah,
getting high.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
They
if they're
fill
just
it up
socking
and then
money
they
away,
empty it.
we had
Yes,
an elementary playground one that kept going up and up and up, and by the time I said, what are we doing here? Well, they're saving up for some major thing. Oh, well, good for them.
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Tech Ed Club is up to 23 grand, so, yeah.
I just wonder if the printers.
So,
Oh, no, we just did an activity fund.
Yeah.
Or
big,
for projects.
Can I ask you a question about, I guess, those two tech ed and the tech ed club and the band club? So that money is separate from band, and tech ed must have a budgeted amount, right? An annual budget? How does these activity funds are
Yeah,
in
they don't-
addition to that?
Right, Aaron probably can tell more about those kind of things and how that works, because it doesn't replace us paying a teacher or paying for their classroom supplies and.
Yeah, it's more in addition, so things outside of their normal budget element. And the band one looks huge just because that's all the money that the kids have raised. That will, as soon as they go on that trip, that amount will be a lot
Oh, yeah.
less. The Tech Ed Club, that really jumped from where it was. I know it's always been pretty solid, but a lot of that,
Oh, I thought you were talking about the print.
no, I meant the
Tech
Tech
Ed
Ed. I didn't know if something was coming out of that from the printer or, but some of the projects Ken does and gets reimbursed for and that element, and so he usually is pretty good about, sometimes if things need to be replaced, like cartridges on the C machine or laser engraver or whatever, to take some money out of that to do with that too. But the rest are just kinda, it's an extra above and beyond where to help out, you know, the kids or the people that are involved with it, above and beyond the normal budget type stuff.
Very good. Next item, unless anybody has any other questions on that, WSB Fall Regional Meeting, coming up September 27th at Southwest Tech, and there was a handout at your spot here tonight.
Yeah, if I can throw in, I am gonna go down to that, we're Region 9, and they elect the WASB Board of Directors, from which the WASB President gets elected. At these meetings, we don't have a director up this year in our region, so we didn't have an election, but we still have a meeting. And WASB will have a representative there, I don't know if it'll be the new president or new executive director, I mean, but they have one of their people there usually. They have a workshop at 4 o'clock that day that deals with board member responsibilities under public record law. So I'm gonna go to that, starts at like 4:30, it's in Fenimore. But the actual regional meeting is at 7 that night, if anybody's interested. Marla can get you registered and everything. It is a good chance to meet board members from surrounding districts, so that's, if anybody thinks they wanna go. And if anybody's thinking about going to the convention in January, that is a, I'm sure, and Scott has said it since he went once, that's a really good opportunity too, if you, anyway, I know it's hard to do it, I didn't go till after I retired, because you know, it's that week in January, we just started second semester, that's not exactly the time you wanna go on, like the first or second week of the semester, so. But I wish now I would've been able to go early, because there's a lot of good things there, and a lot of the, getting up to date on legislative things and stuff, that's there, what they're gonna lobby for, and lots of sections.
And I think earlier there were, Earl's interested, I'm interested, and there was somebody else.
Yeah,
Oh, you're going
yeah,
also.
I think so.
Yeah, it's an intense couple days. There's really 2 days with a lot of good talks, and then there's a lot of
Yeah.
social
Wednesday
stuff
and Thursday.
outside there.
And if you do go to, CISA does a social sort of thing on Thursday night, so, appetizers
It's
and
growing.
beer.
It's growing.
Yeah, they said last
We're
year
not
they
going
had,
to
yeah.
probably new place in the year, maybe.
Well, they're trying to, but it's really hard to
Hard to
find
find
another place.
someplace,
Jake has been looking, but it really, the first year we had maybe 50 people or so, and last year, I don't remember, he said it at the last board meeting, when I figured they
Yeah,
had.
there is, well.
Yeah,
certainly.
they said it was just packed. But a lot of the, again, that's like, you see, who's there from Crawford this year, or Boscoville, or just different people you might know. I'd be surprised a lot of times when I go to these WSB things, somebody else that worked at Southwest Tech, oh, you're on the board down there? Oh, yeah. You know. It's good.
And I think you did this really nice last year, Earl. I think you were the only one that went last year, did you?
I did not.
Yeah, but you gave the board a nice report afterwards, so everybody kind of benefits from the.
I think you always learn something, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Always bring back something, yeah.
You don't get into many sessions when you're at the delegate meetings, put it that way. Especially last year's, because it was like in 4 hours. Sometimes you're that close, but the general assembly session usually got really good speakers. They usually have some school that's performs, and it's just awesome to listen to a lot of these
Yeah,
different.
bands, orchestra.
I mean, that one year.
Richland Center's big.
Well, Richland Center was supposed to be that year, I think, and then they got to go back the next year.
Yeah. There's usually either a blizzard or
Yeah, but,
an ice storm.
I mean, it's just, yeah, it's, very, I mean, that assembly hall is just packed full of people.
Well, if anybody's interested, let Marla know. Beyond those three. And nicely, that knocks off the next item on the agenda, so we're down to item E, Baird model projections. I know Melissa provided us with
A handout that has something on it that looks a little bizarre because I didn't notice it after. I literally printed these at 5:58 tonight. So, the red number for 22-23, don't worry about that, it's because I changed a formulated cell by accident in the budget part of the previous year. It's not, it shouldn't have any impact on anything. So, we have started school and we've had a lot of new enrollments, is what I'm hearing. So we have quite a few more butts and seats than we did have, or what we anticipated. People moving into the area from my understanding and, open enrolling in and. So, the number that was going to be in the September FTE is up significantly. And when I popped that into my revenue limit worksheet, that made some changes happen. It took away our declining enrollment exemption of $99,000. But, I mean, there's flip sides to everything, but now we are also getting additional aid on these kids, as well. So, once I worked through the revenue limit worksheet and put in the non-referendum debt for the energy efficiency HVAC project that we did how many years ago, and then, $200,000 is what I put in for the pool payment for this upcoming year, or the current year that we're actually in, 23-24. Once I got all those numbers in, I came up with, a tax levy of $1,998,567. Now, we don't know for sure our final September FTE counts yet. And we also don't 100% know our October 15th aid certification. But this should be fairly close. It did lower our mill rate, but it kept the, percentage of the overall levy for the public, for our taxpayers at a smaller increase. We have flexibility, we can levy more for the pool and keep our mill rate at a more even level. But if we wanna kinda keep the percentage the same.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? I was gonna ask about that amount. That was kind of what we projected, hopefully that we could do that, but you're saying maybe we could even.
Well, we can, but I got a different opinion this morning when I was talking with Sandy about whether we should or not. It's kind of been my understanding that we want to kind of hold the mill rate level.
Yep, exactly, yeah.
As much as possible, and a good way to do that is to pay extra on the pool now if we're looking forward to an operating referendum. Because if we pay down on the pool now, we'll have fewer years of paying on it, it'll lower our Fund 39 levy, which will allow for that extra to be levied for in the operating referendum, without making big changes in our mill rate then.
So Sandy had a different opinion than that, because what you described was what I thought was the plan.
So she was trying to explain it to me this morning about, not putting, a big increase in the amount of the Fund 10 levy over what we've levied for last year. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, because, I trust her knowledge and expertise much more than I do my own, because she's been in the business for so many years. but I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because I'm not understanding how that works with the fact that we had such property valuation growth.
Right, that's what I was trying to figure out, because it sounded like you said the mill rate goes down, is that because the property values went up so much and, you know, obviously our revenue limit
Right,
is set, and if our property values, so even though our mill rate is going down, my property values in Forest went up considerably, so our mill rate may have went down, but my
well, your
tax
taxes
bill
won't.
may go up,
Right, which is, so if the,
which is one of those things that's hard to.
so if the mill rate's down, it doesn't have such a big impact on you then if we don't levy that extra. Or on other people who had large increases,
Right.
in their townships or municipalities.
Usually if your valuation of your township goes up, with your bill rate going down, yeah, it looks like you're gonna have more, if you look at your total, that actually you're gonna pay less taxes, that's what it does.
Well, if
Your
your mill
property
rate's
value
down,
is
it
up.
sounds like it, but if your property value went up considerably, that might
So,
not work
I-
that way.
Think,
Yeah.
so this tax thing and, mill rates, so like, last year Viola was reassessed. So we got hit last year, and this year some of the other townships got reassessed. So if our mill rate drops, but my home value pretty much stays level, my taxes are gonna go down, compared to where they were last year. Whereas somebody who had a 20% increase in valuation on their property, even though the mill rate went down, their overall tax bill for the school levy may go up.
Because you're being taxed on more thousands of dollars of
Right.
valuation.
Could you review the idea of, do we have the option of stabilizing the mill rate and putting that money toward the pool to pay
Right.
that down faster?
That
How-
is
how does
completely at
that-
your discretion, you know, you can help stabilize the mill rate and the amount paid per thousand by levying extra for the pool payment this year. But they'll increase the percentage of, burden on the taxpayers that way. For those who were reevaluated and had their property valuations go up this year.
Yeah.
But it's not even reevaluated, Forest is gonna be the assessor's gonna come in and reevaluate everything this next year. Right now, it's just what came out of the state, what's that office that they.
Oh, Department of Revenue
Yeah.
gave me the
That's
sort
what
of
they came up with, it's
evaluations.
just, your valuation just changed, not because, I mean, the other part will go up next year, maybe when they come around and do that, but right now, in Forest, it's all just the state saying, hey, that's what the land sales were in your township, and
Yeah.
they were that much more apparently.
And so, but some
I
of
mean,
them were
it's-
some were very large and some were very small.
And some are very
Yeah.
minimal, if, yeah. And I wouldn't say ours is super large, but,
Not as big as Town of Kickapoo last year.
no. Or I think the town of Boone's this year.
Yeah, Town of Boone's this year.
So how is that decision made? We have
Somewhere along
input
the line.
in,
It's part of
When
how,
we approve a budget, we'll have to.
yeah, if you know, is your priority to keep that mill rate level? Or do you
Yeah, and
wanna
we
see
gotta
it
be
dip and
careful
then go
'cause
back up?
When we talk about leveling things, we're not necessarily talking about mill rate, it's more of the tax bill that people see, as much as we can do, but we've learned in the last couple of years that, in fact, we don't really have, what we think, you know, what you turn in, we turn in whatever we've gotta have, when the property tax bills come out, you know.
If the mill rate is lower, but the overall taxation on our taxpayers stays fairly level, like maybe it's a 5% increase overall from our Fund 10 levy last year, then we're keeping the taxes, you know, as low as we can, I think. But I guess it depends on, which way you guys want it to go, because we can adjust it, by playing with that, pool payment. And what we
and
levy
is this
for them.
something we're gonna be presenting at the annual meeting next month already? Or sort of our
It's
general?
gonna have to be, and I don't know, if we need more input from Sandy or from, this is the area where, I job with this and her explanations and stuff is good, but, you know, the actual advice on what to do, the reason we've got the flexibility with pool payments is we did not want bond for that.
Yeah.
We borrowed the money without bonding, so that we have, you know, a way to pay it off, and even if we don't increase it, it looks like we're still following that model here, that it will be paid off. Cause I see out here at the very right edge, there's a 0 there, so I'm assuming that means we paid off the pool in that amount of time, right?
I do wanna point out, I don't want you guys to pay too terrible much attention to these upcoming years. Because I'm not sure where our revenues and expenses are really gonna fall there. I mean, within the model, they're projected, but those get changed on us all the time. So, the numbers for 23-24 is what I was really focusing on in this, for this current year budget. But yes, you're right, those pool payments, they will fall off in the next few years. And we were trying to get them to fall off, you know, as we moved into operating referendums.
And if I'm right, Scott, I think if we just leave it budgeted the way it is right now, and we get to the end of the year with funds, we could pay more of it off, right? We could make that decision later,
Yes,
so we don't necessarily have to build it into the tax levy at the beginning if we leave it like this. and-
right. If we leave it like this and we have extra at the end of the year, we can make an extra payment. I believe we did that one other year, maybe the first year. I think that might have happened.
So theoretically, looking at this, is next November still what makes the most sense for operating referendum?
That's what I'm just trying to look at here too, but, you know, you kind of, when you say don't look ahead,
Well,
but
no,
that's
no,
what the
I
model's
just mean they're not,
for.
I just mean like if you're looking at like revenues and expenditures and then the surplus, those aren't exactly right. Because I don't have those years all budgeted out. I do have some percent increases put in there, but how those will play out, I'm not 100% sure.
So, yeah, regarding that surplus or deficit line, that was one of the things that jumped out when I saw this, and this is great, Melissa, this is gonna generate good discussion, but, you know, you look, we're talking about an operational referendum, but then you look at least these projections, and we agreed there's certainly uncertainty in there, but, you know, starting next year, we've got a surplus. How,
Okay, so
How
Where's
do you
the need
justify,
for-
how do you campaign for a
So
referendum?
that, we didn't have, the model was not showing that before we got this huge increase in enrollment. And if you look up at the top, and you look at the first line, that September membership FTE going across the years. So Kim and I looked at that this afternoon based on our class sizes in the upper grades. Obviously, we don't know for sure what we'll get in for 4K. So what we did was we just kind of left that, I believe we left that alone, right?
Yeah.
And we just adjusted and reduced or added based on the size of classes that are gonna be graduating, with an assumption that we're gonna pull in the same 4K that we have this year, which may or may not be correct.
which was what, 22?
No, we ended up with 32.
Which,
Oh,
well, they
you
can,
didn't
they,
put
no,
that all the
no,
way
no,
across in the projection, did you?
No,
That
because
would be
that's point.
unrealistic.
I put
I
19.
mean, that's wonderful, and we would love it if it happened, but let's be realistic.
Yeah, no, we were realistic, and
I
we
put
looked
nine-
at the outgoing seniors.
Mhm.
And then what was, for each of those 4 years, what was the preschool number? What was?
Did we put 19 in there for, as an FTE? 'Cause there was 32 kids, but they're only 19, and you're right, we should probably lower that down, because that's probably not gonna happen.
When you say preschoolers, you're talking 4K.
4K, so where there's 32
And,
students,
and they don't count as a whole
no,
student.
that's why there's only
right?
19 on the FTE.
Yeah, but you don't want 19
No, you're-
because they're
you're right.
only in school, like, is it half a day?
Well, the 19 is correct, because if you take the 32 and times it by the 0.6 that DPI lets us count them for, it comes to 19. But our,
But you took the 32, and that's what I'm saying. Do you really
Well, I
wanna
ran it-
project that we're gonna have 32 in that all the way?
32 kids at 19 FTE, and that is what's projected, and you're right, that's gonna need to change. I was not thinking about that today, but I needed that.
So maybe next month, could you adjust that and use what's realistic, 22, 24? Just to,
22 is what we were originally expecting.
We wanna be more conservative,
I think so.
Right.
yeah, that's all, I don't know how else to say it, we've always been pretty conservative.
22 would give us 13.
Underestimate your income, overestimate your expenses, and maybe you'll come out even, but.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what you guys think, but for the foreseeable future, something like this every month would be awesome. Discuss it, tweak it, I don't know, your jaw drops, is this a pain in the butt to?
This is a lot,
Is
and this
it?
is something you work on for months to get it to a point where it's final for the annual meeting. I mean, it's projection, and you can put stuff in there, but there's always stuff changing, and,
But once you've got the model, then as things change, it's easy to update, right? You just drop in a new number, a new enrollment number, a new.
this is one output page of several tabs.
And the
Of
information
spreadsheet.
comes periodically, right? So
Right,
the Friday count, the different aides that come in, schools are paid differently than like we are, so you get a drop in January and June and
Maybe
whatever.
our
What-
aid from the state comes
oh, you
out.
mean our state, yeah. But, I
Or
mean,
other sources.
Well, and I just asked for that, and maybe it's not realistic to ask for it, because in my mind, we're talking about, a referendum's a big issue.
right, we will have to look at it more often going towards referendum, for sure. It's just gonna have to happen. But to make it a monthly thing
Well,
would be a lot.
but, I don't know, we're gonna need to have an idea of when this referendum's gonna be, because, let's see, what's next year is an even numbered year, there'll be a possibility of a spring. If we needed to levy it for I'm getting confused here, in the 23-24 year, if we wanted to levy for the 24-25 year, which originally I thought was what the thought was, at like last year's annual meeting,
Yes,
then we have to do that referendum in the spring next year, which means by the end of January, we have to approve the language for what that'll have to be, either the January meeting or a special meeting or something, because it seems like that was the absolute deadline, was the end of January for
It's
a
right
legal
in there.
referendum. So we don't have very long, this is September, October, November,
And that's what I'm thinking, and as well, a referendum's a big thing, right? I mean, you look at the price of a Croy sandwich at Quick Trip, it's freaking tripled. The cost of living's gone up for everybody, we're all feeling it. And so when I think about a referendum, I won't wanna just say, well, it looks like we're gonna have to go to referendum, let's charge everybody more on their property taxes.
We have to
Because
pass
when
it
I'm
before
looking
you
at
can do
this
that.
and recognizing the uncertainty in there, if we're gonna buckle down and plan for a referendum, I'm looking at 4 years of budget surplus and a growing fund balance. That does
In
not
which case
tell
we
me.
can't. If this is, that's where we need, and maybe we're gonna need some outside help here.
I agree.
Okay, we can talk more about that later, but, yeah, based on this, I don't see how do you campaign, how do you say, yeah, I want you to pay more in property tax because we can't operate the school, because that's what we're talking about,
Yep.
an operating referendum. We need more money to operate the school. Well, it doesn't look like we do, but as you say, Melissa, these numbers are maybe not to be trusted right now
No,
for that
by
decision.
mid-October, they're gonna look a lot tighter. Because I will have gotten everything wrapped, hopefully, all wrapped up tight for, this
I mean,
year,
and
and
I
then
don't- I'm
that'll
not
give
saying
me more.
I want it to show that we're gonna be losing money so that we'll need to do a referendum. I'd rather that this were right, and we don't have to do it. So we have to do the best we can to get as accurate a model as we can.
But
And
the,
if accurate means we don't need a referendum quite as soon as it was thought a year ago, wow, that'd be nice.
I need to change those FTEs, like you mentioned, for the
Yeah.
incoming preschool classes, that's gonna have an impact on it. And then, those surpluses up there, those are with these referendum amounts that are listed down below. So I believe there's still be a need for a
Well-
referendum.
Well, the first thing to do is, don't act like we have a referendum. Don't act like we have a referendum. If we can't pass a referendum, that money isn't gonna be there. So you don't put that money there. You show us what's it gonna look like. This is
Without it?
what we look
Yeah.
like if we don't do a
I
referendum.
agree.
Okay,
And then we see where we are.
okay.
That paints the true picture of the need, yeah.
I can
I
actually make
think
an
so,
adjustment to this and email it out to you guys for.
That
future
would be
review,
great too.
Once I pull
But
those
we
out.
need, I mean, you need to kind of run by what I'm saying by Sandy, because I trust her, you know, not that, I'm not saying I trust.
No, I
mean,
totally
Her
understand.
experience in this, but I think to start with, we don't assume, I mean, we can't assume we're gonna have that money,
Yeah,
or that this is the right amount of money we need. So we do this, if we don't have a referendum, and we have to get by on what we think the state's gonna give us and what we think we're gonna get for kids and the other things that I don't know about, this is what it's gonna look like, and I think maybe
And the
that's something.
per pupil increase, we know for sure this year and next year, it's the 325,
Right.
325, so we're good. But theoretically, 25 through 28 could be back to zero.
See, and I've looked at that too, but I wouldn't have any idea what to say, that's why we need
Right.
someone with a bigger understanding of what's going on. Is that realistic to keep saying we're gonna still keep getting that amount?
Right, yeah, because if it goes back to
And
zero.
what has that
then
done over other years, has that always, because it hasn't been that number.
No,
That's like
not
the
at all.
biggest number I've
That's
seen.
the biggest
for-
number we've had.
Yeah, and so we don't wanna project going forward with the biggest number we've had.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to be conservative.
Yeah, you're finding out that I'm not very optimistic, and so that would be too optimistic for me to project.
I was uncomfortable putting the number in there.
I don't know, it's not the kind of thing that I could tell you what number to put in there, just, I think Aaron's got a good point there, that
Well, regardless, Melissa, this is wonderful. I mean, this is the type of information you need to generate discussions, and you keep working at it, refining it, inputting better data, and
So the question I'd have with the conversation that we're gonna have is, we're talking about dropping the mill rate for this next year. And that kind of looks like it's projected to level, but then obviously that's gonna skyrocket when you start going to referendum. Is there any benefit of keeping this level? I know it's gonna mean some increases this year, but to help plan for that future, maybe offset some of that cost to the present instead of pushing it off to the future and making it somebody else's problem. Future needs problem.
so you're saying go ahead and pay more. Yeah,
That's my question. Does that make more sense than taking that now, seeing that for a couple of years and then all of a sudden bouncing back there?
yeah, cause, you know, ideally, we could get school paid off before we do the referendum, and then and some schools have been really good at doing that by looking at is, you got some debt going along, and if you can hang in there one way or another until that debt falls off, you can pass that referendum, and it doesn't really look like an increase, because debt falls off. And other debt replaces it, so.
Well, and so
But I
then
don't
the
know.
question is, what does that look like if, if we stay the same, are we looking at targeting that 450 we had last year, or?
Oh, I originally had 365 in there
So it pretty much take a year
for
off
the
of,
pool payment this year.
so it pretty much take 1 year off of our total duration.
say it again, I think I didn't follow.
Pretty much just taking that last 162,065 and plugging into this year, and saying it's 360 instead. Right, so you just take your payoff date to 26 instead of 27.
Oh, yeah.
And
How
when does
much
the
did you say
HVAC come off? Is that in 25 or 26 too?
Somewhere up in there, yeah. That'll fall off.
On the energy one?
Mhm.
What did you say you originally had put in?
I believe I had 365 in the
Okay.
full payment originally.
Which would be pretty close to what Isaac said then, yeah. It's, you'd say,
It's a
gets rid of,
full-
that gets rid of that last.
And
But again,
it
I
keeps the mill
don't,
rate
yeah, I
very
don't
level.
know.
You're talking about impact this year, you know they're only gonna keep going up, so
I kinda like that thought. If you keep the levy level, yeah, you could pay
The
off
levy
that,
as level as you can, and that's.
that almost seems,
keep the mill rate level.
the mill rate level. Advance that debt repayment. And that, yeah. So in the context of an annual meeting, when we present the proposed budget, could we give the public, whoever shows up, sort of the options, explain this to them and say, or do we say this is what we want?
You have to have a proposal,
We have to have a proposal.
and that comes from your administrator generally, so.
We're gonna be sick that night, can you, Phil?
If she's sick, I'm sick.
Wear a mask for a couple days before.
I think Isaac, I hadn't thought of it like that, but, you know, leveling that a bit, or even calculating a slighter reduction in the mill rate that would allow you to pay off that debt levy a year or more sooner, keeps you from maybe having to experience that big bump just a couple years down the road. I
And
like
that,
that,
I
that's
think that was
really,
the original plan.
The only thing is, and I don't know, maybe Sandy would know about this too, we didn't bond for it, so we have control over what we pay. But do we have any limits on, we're paying back $2 million that we told the public we would take up to 20 years to pay? Is that what that was? I forget. You know, how much dare you throw at in 1 year? But we'll see what it looks like when you work it out and see, yeah.
I believe we've paid extra every year since we've had.
We have, and we've
A
done that on
significant
a
amount.
lot of our debts over the last.
Just, and it saves the interest in the long run too. Not that the interest is high on this loan, but.
But,
But somebody else said it does look goofy, and again, you don't know the exact numbers to put in. But when you look at it, that our fund balance continues to increase
Because
for the
of
next few years. It-
Yeah, but like you said, you have to take off.
Right, not knowing what those other years are is gonna drastically change what that would be, but as it looks right now, it's like, oh,
It'll look terrible when I take the referendum.
yeah.
yeah, well, I
we don't
mean,
necessarily want it to look terrible, but
Uh-huh.
I wanna look at it realistically.
Well, some things, you know, like 70 to 80% of the budget being, benefits and salaries. I mean, we know there's gonna be at least small increases in that every year. I mean, we can at least count on probably 2% every year. And then utilities, we can just plan on having them climb a couple percent every year, basically. Fuel costs are so variable, that's hard to determine, like for the busing fuel, that's another large expense that we have. So we can kind of gauge and plan for the percent increases there in our expenditures. And our revenues for next year are gonna be a lot easier to predict too, it's just gonna be mainly it's gonna depend on our FTE, our membership FTE. Because the state budget's set for next year, we already know what we're getting next year for that, what their plan is. So it'll be easier next year than it was this year to try and put it all together.
yeah, so, would it be easy to redo this just by plugging in a more realistic enrollment?
I can
And
change,
then-
I can change that preschool FTE, and take those referendum numbers out
Yeah,
tomorrow and email it to the board.
that would be great.
Let's start with that, cause that's not an excessive amount of change to bring, yeah.
And I, you know, this comes from a place of just not wanting to go to referendum. You know, I don't
I
wanna
know.
ask people for more money, but, you know, our job, just to be perfectly upfront, is not just to steer us as carefully as we can toward referendum, but, and not that we haven't done a great job of this to this point, but control or reduce our costs to keep from going to referendum. And I mean, these are the times that force really hard decisions, right?
Yeah,
And
it does.
I'm not pointing at any individual thing, but as we, you know, like, new concrete, a new position, I'll tell you, I'm gonna be looking at all those things with a lot harder eye than I have to this point, because that all adds up into numbers that point us to dumping those costs back on the taxpayers, and I just don't like that. And none of us do,
And-
but,
Part of the campaigning for referendum in the past, the few times we've done it, and as you watch other schools do it, and in our case, we'll come out good here, is explaining what you have done, what have we done to save money, and I'm not sure we have to start to get that together, but I know in last year's annual meeting package, you had quite a list of things we've done. And the things we've done that we haven't gone to referendum for in the last, how many ever years. We have this whole building re-roofed, I think now, right? We got all our
Think so.
sections
Yeah.
and everything
All
done.
one section, right?
We've got, I don't remember what else, but you know,
You're right, I think that's one.
there's quite a list out there of things we've done, got our parking lot taken care of, and, you know, things that's the reason some places go to referendum.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think our number one job though is educating kids. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I feel like
We
we
have to.
look really, really hard at the numbers, and I think that's great, but I don't wanna lose sight of that too, because we've had conversations as a board where we're looking at the numbers, and I don't want that to overrule
Right.
educating kids.
And we know we have to like keep our teacher salary competitive, so, you know, we're probably not gonna be able to save a lot of money in that area. You know, if there are things we could save on, I'm sure, you know, we're all open to doing that, but to be honest, we've done a lot of that in the past, I'm not sure what's left.
Yeah, I mean,
I
there's
mean, we
no,
can stop buying a school bus every year, but is that short-sighted, you know? Or maybe we could get by without and save the
I don't know if there's,
$1,000 on a bus.
I certainly can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't know if there's any fat to trim off our steak. We got a nice tasty steak here, right? But it does allow you to start thinking about other ways, like this Spanish teacher, it's a co-op position. Kim and I talked not
Yeah.
long ago, let's meet with Lafarge, what other ways could we
Yeah.
collaborate to maybe save money to keep from seeing things fall into the red? I mean, referendum might be definitely on the horizon, but, you know, I just hate to not do everything we can to keep from
And the
getting.
closer we can get to where the pool deck comes off, the more level we can.
Yep.
And
But-
probably have to be a spike there for a year or two, but if you can, it's gonna, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure how many, I haven't checked that website to see how many, if there's there's no fall election this year, so there won't be any referendums till.
I'm really encouraged that the 32 preschool kids, I don't know how that
Yes,
happened,
that's
but wonderful.
amazing.
Keep it going.
Yeah, it was weird.
Are we calling the COVID babies yet, or is that?
Maybe not quite.
Probably not quite yet.
So are these, people that have moved in basically rather than open enrolled, or?
We had a few, I know 4Kers open enrolled, but I think a lot of it's just been moved in.
Fantastic. Well, and again, Melissa, this is, and Kim, you both probably worked on it, this is really
She
helpful.
did, she's spent all day.
I mean, look at, it's hard to discuss these things unless you got something to discuss, and this is really, really good. But I agree with you, Isaac, the mission doesn't change regardless of what the numbers are, right? It's just,
Just make sure we keep that in mind.
yep, it's a very good point. Any other thoughts on that? Then we're down to scheduling of meetings. Looks like there's a building and grounds meeting that needs to be scheduled.
Yeah, Mary Alexander wants to donate a tree. So just understanding if we need to put some kind of guidelines on like what type of tree and where, and then possibly a plaque. Is kind of the main reason.
Somebody we did plant a tree for once.
Yeah, sometimes donations get a little tricky in this kind of thing, so.
Definitely don't want
Because
any ash
some-
trees.
Yeah.
Well, if you can actually, if it lives, why not?
Probably won't. When are they thinking about the tree? Hopefully not this fall, cause I don't think it'll live.
Well,
Dry as the ground is.
and I mean, I'm sure that she'd be open to that. She had sent actually the message to Brian Cash, and he had forwarded it to say, I think this needs some approval or discussion, so.
Guess we need to see what they, what they thought of, was where they'd like to see a tree that up in the back where nobody.
That's what I said.
My guess is it's gonna want to be out front someplace, and then we'll have to decide.
Yeah, cause it's not like it doesn't entail some work for somebody, you have to put
Well,
water and
it's-
load around.
Tree that fits into the landscape of everything instead of, so that in 10 years you don't have to cut it down because it's got 30 feet tall, so.
I just offer that this might be something, if these requests have been common or become common, it might be nice to develop a policy. Because when I was working at the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, the history of that property, it's 149 former family farms. We were, for a period, beset with requests like this, and we eventually had to develop a policy that basically said you can plant a native tree in these areas with this as a memorial marker, because we started getting requests for a tree with literally an engraved boulder. In one case, they were gonna lift in with a helicopter, and you get one of those is fine, but then you get dozens, and once you approve one with no say, then, so maybe a
I
policy.
think there is some guideline policy,
I
I
think
think
there
there
is a policy.
I'm pretty sure there is
There is
already
that
something
naming
in
thing,
place with,
that we went through, the naming
Yeah.
stuff, there's big policies on that.
I think there's something.
But do you wanna schedule that meeting now? I don't.
Or if she doesn't mind waiting, or if he thinks it's gonna be spring, maybe wait until you have other issues.
I can just reach out to her and let
Please
her
don't
know
see
that.
that, I really would think it'd be a bad idea to plant one this fall.
And then
Trees
next
is-
time you have a meeting.
Yeah, well, I-
Somebody's gonna be watering it all the time if you wanna try to keep it alive. My guess is if we don't get a lot of rain, you're gonna see a lot of your trees go by the wayside, because they ain't gonna make it. Just not enough moisture, I mean, I think that's why you're seeing the maples and everything right now starting to turn so early, it's because there's no moisture in there. I mean, there's leaves falling off trees already, it's just because there's no moisture there, so.
Okay, I'll communicate.
Yeah,
with her.
see what,
Yep, I'll just tell her we'll put it on for the
I mean,
benefit of
we'll
the
discuss
tree.
it, just, you know, see what, how urgent it is to get it done, so
Okay,
then we'll go from there.
Okay, moving on, principals reports, looks like we'll have one tonight.
All right, well, so far we're off to a good start, we have 6 days in. So, rolling along, I think our total middle school, high school is right at around 260 kids, I think we have 7 new. I think there's 165 in the high school, so that's, number is still, pretty solid, which is good. I talked about overall, I don't know exactly how many were up, but that's kind of where we're at, middle school, high school. I think if people saw the news blast, we were named US News and World Report, top 45 best high schools again, which is great. It's 16 out of 17 years, so which is a pretty cool thing. Basically that's based on college readiness, state test scores, AP participation rates, graduation rate, and then there's a poverty factor that goes into that as well. So our number was 164 out of the 400 and some high schools in the state. I don't remember exactly nationwide, but again, still a great accomplishment for the staff and the kids as well. We'll continue to look at test analysis with things coming up. I think we'll give normal board report. That data will be available in November. But really look at some of those situations and where we can improve. We'll have the ACT pre-test coming up as well, which we typically take usually the first week in October, which gives us an opportunity to really analyze kids where they're at and look at some data to continue to improve. And the last thing, and I know we've talked about it, but it's up and running again, is the K. So if you haven't actually seen it, on your way out tonight, drive slow, look up on the hill, you'll see it. It's lit up, it looks pretty cool. Billy Kellogg actually came and mowed what we could not mow for the rest of. DJ got it painted, we got the solar fire lights up there, so it looks good. I think it's definitely a good addition. We'll definitely make an effort to make sure this time it doesn't grow back up and stays that way. I think it's a pretty cool source of pride for people to see when they come by. So that's what I have. Any questions?
I just want to comment that I specifically made a trip out here last Friday night after the game, just so I could see it, because I
Were you
forgot.
impressed?
Well, I'm usually like in bed. You know, when we went to the demo derby, so yeah, I was really impressed. I thought it looked really nice.
It's gotta be definitely different with the big trees.
Yeah.
Or compared to what it was back in the day when we carried kerosene up there, living with corn.
Dangerous. I can't believe you have a first place though.
There are all those trees up there, so.
I actually have a note from Andy, or Mr. Lipsky.
Oh,
So, the elementary, principal report, he notes, we rolled out the new parent communication app called ClassTag. There's been a little bit of a learning curve for parents and teachers, but so far so good. I have the ability to see if parents are on the app and reading the messages. I think it will be effective in helping us communicate with parents moving forward. He also states, overall, I think we're off to a good start. When I went around to all of the grades, the teachers said they felt positive about the year moving forward and where we are headed. He also met with a representative from foster grandparents on Friday. He would like to do that if that's okay. Sheila Alderman is the prospective grandma. She has gone through the training with the foster grandparent program. And the foster grandparent is like additional hands. They come, they read with kids, like tutor, but interact. I know Westy has like a Grandma Sandy, and all the kids love Grandma Sandy, and she's just kind of so that is Mr. Lipsky's report.
thank you, Andy, through Kim. Thanks, Anna. I don't see a superintendent report, is there just?
Oh, I have one, I'm not sure
Okay.
how we missed that, but that's all right. So we welcomed back the staff with identifying some Panther traits that make them successful as a team. We dug into some core value work, and we'll continue to seek that ad hoc committee. Nurse Trish will be working with a student from Western Governors University. Shauna Endalsick is a parent of a high school freshman girls and will be putting in 80 hours with Nurse Trish. So it'll be great to have a second pair of nurse hands here. Kitchen news, Tina and Jeremy are going to work together to create and sustain a school garden in the greenhouse. Jeremy will build his curriculum to include a hands-on approach to learning through utilizing the greenhouse, providing tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers for our school lunches. Organic Valley had provided a donation for Tina, so that's going to be part of the startup cost for whatever they need. Tina is putting the donut maker and an oven up on our Wisconsin surplus. I items that she's not using in the kitchen, so selling those. We're working on our civil rights compliance progress report. What we had started kind of last spring, so we are resuming work with those and getting our corrective action plan. Kent had sent me from TC Networks, so this is for our Wi-Fi access points. We have to have this for security and software updates, and it's time to renew our subscription on the Extreme Arrowhide access points. It is set to expire in October. So basically, we have a bid for $6,000 for 1 year, or $14,000 for 3 years, which is a considerable savings. Talked to Melissa, and we're looking at the Rural and Low Income Schools grant, and it would streamline the process and make that grant very simple and save a lot of money, so we're just gonna go with the 14,000. I don't know, do I have to bring that back for action item? It's a subscription, so, and it's something that we have to have. I wanted to get us in there before we expired in October, but,
And this is TC Networks,
Yeah.
is actually recommending this.
yes.
I don't know exactly how it works, I don't have any problem, just saying.
Yeah, we need it, and it's a good savings. You know, we need to have security, we need to have those access points. I attended a PAC meeting at CISA. We talked a lot about the school budget and where all the different schools are, and had some guidance from Mike Berry on the school finance system. We also had Boardman and Clark lawyers speak to us on behalf of recruitment and utilizing that exchange program. I spoke with Jeff. He has, speaking of buses, not necessarily, they won't like save a bus for you, but we do have our name on a bus of a 2023. Buying the 2023 bus saves us $18,000. The other bus that he had put on the Wisconsin surplus brought in $3,800, well, $3,875, which is more than we've ever gotten. And our monthly claim for insurance was at $23,862, giving us a year-to-date total of $27,707. I also need to share our seclusion and restraint report. The law permits the use of physical restraint or seclusion only in circumstances where a student's behavior presents a clear, present, and imminent risk to the physical safety of the student or others, and physical restraint or seclusion is the least restrictive intervention feasible. So seclusion, as defined, means the involuntary confinement of a student apart from other students in a room or area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving. Staff must maintain constant supervision of the student by either remaining with the student in the room or area, or by viewing the student through a large window enough to see all areas of the room. Seclusion may be used only as long as is necessary to resolve the risk to the physical safety of the student or others. Our number of incidences where we had to seclude a student was 4 for this past school year. The total number of students who were involved in incidents of seclusion during the previous school year were 2. The number of students with disabilities who were involved in incidents in seclusion during the previous year was 1. Restraint, a physical restraint means a restriction that immobilizes or reduces the ability of a student to freely move his torso, arms, legs, or head. It may only be used when a student's behavior presents a clear, present, and imminent risk to the physical safety of the student or others, and is the least restrictive intervention feasible. The number of incidents of physical restraint during our previous school year was 5. The total number of students who were involved in incidents of physical restraint during the school year was 2. And the number of students with disabilities who were involved in incidents of physical restraint were 2. 2 students were referred to the community services and behavior plans were created or modified. 1 student was referred for special education services and referred for community services as well. And I think that's all I have on my report.
I would say just go ahead and
Go
purchase
ahead and
those
pay that.
access points. I don't think that needs to be,
I wasn't sure with it being a subscription and that was need for security.
And if we had more time, like you'd say, we'll bring it back in October and stuff, but I don't.
Well, it
doesn't
expires
sound like
October
we're done.
24th, so there, I mean, in reality it could. I don't,
Huh?
Say less than $5,000 per year.
yes,
So,
There you go.
bingo.
I'm just gonna-
yes, ma'am.
Any questions, comments for Kim? Then I will entertain a motion to convene the closed session. Pursuant to state statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The purpose tonight, paraeducator position and the bus driver resignation.
Make a motion to convene closed session.
I'll second it.
Motion by Isaac, second by Earl, and I think we need a roll call vote. Marla?
Janet Mathis,
Yes.
Earl Wallace.
Yes.
Rich James,
Yes.
Isaac Wallace,
Yes.
Bo Schrader,
Yes.
and Scott Walter.
Yes.
Maybe stop the video.
Oh, I got two.
Are we live streaming right now or not?
No, we are
Okay,
not live.
I didn't think so.